I call to order the Town of Essex Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, October 9th, 2025. We have one main item on the agenda, but several smaller ones with which we'll start. So first, I would ask for any agenda additions or changes. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the agenda as warned? Hearing none, I move on to approve the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Paula,
I'll second it.
seconded by Shu. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Good seeing everybody. Joined on Zoom by Ian this evening. Commissioner Brusso is out, but recovering nicely, I heard. So those 6 ayes and no nays. The agenda is approved. Public to be heard. Public to be heard is for items that are not specifically on the agenda. And because we do have a big agenda, or rather, presumably a long-standing agenda this evening, we're going to limit public to be heard to 10 minutes, if at all possible.
Brief as possible. Mr. Chairman, at the last Planning Commission meeting, Susan's Place came up as a topic. And I think it was mischaracterized, and I want to make sure that the Planning Commission has the correct impression of Susan's Place. Help me with that. I've invited a resident of Susan's Place with me here, Nicole. There are 2 things said. I'll just remind you what they were. That the Essex Rescue responds to events at Susan's Place twice a day. The reality is, and we contacted Essex Rescue about this, they do respond 2 times in one day, but not every day. So that impression was not accurate. But more importantly, I'm going to quote this now. Susan's Place is a transitional housing for homeless, except that people who are in there actually belong in a nursing home care facility. I heard that and said, I'm puzzled by that because my friend Nicole here does not look like she's quite ready for a nursing home. So I felt that was a very incorrect impression for you to get. So I'll just let her briefly describe what it's like at Susan's Place. That's it.
Hello, my name is Nicole Hawley. I'm a current resident of Susan's Place, along with my 2 children. I just want to take a moment to refute some of the misinformed comments that were made at that last meeting. First, the claim that Susan's Place is transitional housing. Now, transitional housing is characterized by restrictions on its length of stay and the fact that it offers intensive services around finding and maintaining permanent housing. Susan's Place is not transitional housing. It is actually permanent housing. I have met people there who have been residents there for the 4 years it's been in operation. It was purchased by the Champlain Housing Trust back in 2020. It's used to be the old Baymont Inn and Suites, and they converted it to 68 apartments that are reserved for those who are exiting homelessness, people who are no longer homeless. They've done the work to find the housing, and Susan's Place is that permanent housing. Susan's Place also is home to Susan's Pantry, which is a food shelf for residents of all Champlain Housing Trust properties. The claim that the residents who live at Susan's Place all belong in nursing homes or other care facilities is patently false. I know that there are a couple of residents who are up in age and may require responses from a place like Essex Rescue, but we also are right next door to at least one nursing home or care facility across the street. And it would be unfair to characterize Susan's Place in the same line. Not only that, but anyone who is elderly and who lives in a nursing home is deserving of human dignity and respect, and Essex Rescue's job is entirely to respond to calls for those issues. And response times are always going to suck no matter where you live because you never know where someone's going to be called out. It's not specific either to nursing homes or care facilities. There are plenty of children who live at Susan's Place who can just as easily get injured as someone who is elderly anyway. Kids are always going to be hurt and need to be seen. So I just think that it's unfair to characterize Susan's Place in such a negative way, especially since it is actually a place that goes out of its way to help people to better their lives. Thank you.
Any further public to be heard on items or concerns or issues that are not already on the agenda? Yes. Oh, if you look under number 6, you're here for the Women's Correctional Facility discussion. After the board, the commission has a discussion, we'll open it up to the public and then explain the rules for that. So you are here in the right place at the right time. Yeah. Hearing no further public to be heard, move on to approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Paula.
Seconded.
Seconded by Georgia. Do we have any amendments?
I will note that I think at all your seats, there are some edits that are requested by a citizen, Irene Renner, and these were passed on to Sharon and she passed them on to me. It makes sense to just to clarify what she was suggesting.
So I saw these. I have no objection to these amendments. Objection to the amendments? In which case, all those in favor of the minutes as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
I'll abstain, Josh, because I don't have a copy of those.
Could you? Oh, that was an abstain for that reason?
I'll abstain because I don't have a copy of those additional minutes.
For that clarification, in which case the minutes as amended pass 5-0 to 1. Now, business items. Women's Correctional Facility zoning change request, PC discussion followed by public comment. Staff, could you please put up the current up-to-date proposal? Can you plug in through there? If not, I can read it out loud, but it'd be easier, I think, if everyone could see it.
Let's make sure. It's very hard to see on this.
You could bring it up and I will read the updated. There's a letter from the state whereby they, in their words, clarified their zoning request. And that doesn't look like it can be read, so I'll read this out loud. The state now formally requests the following change. 414C2, state-owned and operated and/or contracted correctional facilities as defined in Section 8.1 may be located only in the O1 district south of Vermont Route 15 in the southwest quadrant of the town and in the I1 district in the southeast quadrant of the town. So you may recall, commissioners, at the last meeting with the Department of Corrections and Attendance, we talked about Site 1 versus Site 2. So this is narrowing it down to the one off of River Road, in the southeast quadrant of the town. And so to remind everyone where we are, we've had over the past, 14 months, staff? 14 months, we've had various public meetings, workshops, if you will, to talk about The originally proposed change was for 2 spots in town. Now it's been narrowed down to 1. And our decision point tonight, potentially as a commission, is to determine whether we want to move this on as it is for a full public hearing, to in some way amend it, have a public hearing, or say that we're not at this time, for whatever reason, interested in pursuing this, as we would with any other zoning change. And to follow through, if this goes to a public hearing will be officially on such language as we put up for a zoning change, that we would vote it up or down after, again, public comment, as it's a public hearing. From there, assuming it's voted up, it would go to the select board, who themselves would vote it up or down. And then at the conclusion of it being passed, again, in this scenario where it's passed, what could happen then, and we've heard this mooted from other people, and there was an effort earlier at the beginning of the year, 5% of people, 5% of town voters rather, within 20 days can sign a petition that would put the entire matter as on the town warrant to be voted on by the populace as a whole. So where we are this evening is, this is amazingly the first time that the commission has been able to speak amongst ourselves to deliberate. So we're going to start with that. And then from there, when we reach a somewhat natural stopping point, we'll see where that is, because again, we haven't talked about this amongst ourselves at all. We'll then open it up to public comment, and the aim is, we'll see how much time we have remaining. As you see, it says 8:15, we have a hard stop again. And so I will solicit how many people wish to speak. I'd like to privilege those who, there were, I want to say 4 people who were cut off last time because we had to leave. Privileging those people to go first, but we'll divide the time remaining, again, coming back to the board at the conclusion of that, the time remaining by the number of people so we can have an equitable amount of time given. So right now, though, we're at the table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Shu, actually. It's rare, start with Shu. And just, we're going to get our sort of general impressions of where we stand. Starting, where I'd like to frame this is, do we think we're ready to either move it up or move it down? Do we think we need more from someone somewhere, or do we think we have, as I've been calling it, the discovery phase? Do we think we've gotten all that we're going to get, all that we need from various parties? But also, the floor is yours, so whatever you want to say.
Well, I feel like we have, I personally have reached that point. I don't know about the rest, can't speak for the rest of the commission, but that's kind of where I'm at. I'm ready to move forward on a decision as to whether or not to make the zone.
I've said this a couple times. I do wish we had heard from business owners a bit, because I feel like that's a missing piece, but I think it's been for, so at this point.
I'm ready to come to some sort of conclusion this evening as well. Even though Commissioner Brusso is not here, he said that he's fine with us moving on. He didn't have any heartburn over us doing this without him while he does his PT.
Yeah, I guess we could. Vote. It's kind of the vagueness. Proposals. I would have liked to have known more, but apparently it's just not been fleshed out anymore.
I have not changed my opinion. The state has way too much wiggle room where they can change things completely from what we think we're voting on.
You're ready to make that official declaration this evening? And we have Ian online.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have enough information. I feel I can make a decision this evening. I don't think I need to hear more.
All right, so let's talk about what our points of maybe contention, or what we think about the proposal. Once again, this is the first time we've had to do this. Start again with Shu. What are your thoughts on what we have in front of us? Again, we're literally the text of what we have in front of us, what we should focus on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what we're asking, what this is really about is about a request to change the zoning. It's not whether or not we make a decision about whether it's right or wrong to do build prisons or spend money or any of those kinds of things. That's not really our job. This is a zoning request that's to be examined within the context of the town plan and what's good for the town. The opinions are all over the map, depends on who you do. So my feeling is that I am particularly nervous about changing the use in industrial zone. I just not sure that that's what we want to do as a blanket choice. Maybe if we could talk about an overlay or something like that, or spot zoning or whatever, which spot zoning is a terrible idea. But for my part, I don't really want to change anything. That's where I'm.
I think I'm probably more open to it than anyone here, but I haven't heard enough to convince me that in the best interest of the town. And it corresponds to, you know, we look through the whole town plan again, and it doesn't really fulfill any of our goals. It doesn't, I'm really struggling to get to a yes, personally.
Cover?
Well, just the one thing that sticks in my mind is that I asked, I guess when commissioners were here, they say one of the big reasons to build this was overcrowding. And then they said, it's going to be the same size as the one that exists, same number of beds. So, and it just seems sort of uncertain. They said, oh, well, we could expand it. So it just, to me, it just doesn't seem like they have their plans fleshed out. And I don't think it's appropriate at this time to make a zoning change.
I agree. That there are too many ifs, buts, and ands. And I have been the victim of that from the state in the past. Suspicious.
Ian?
Sure, I feel my biggest issue with this all along has been really with taxation of our first responders and how they'll be able to absorb the additional work that would come along with this. However, I have not seen any comments from police chief or fire chief in regards to that being an issue. I am for the concept of the prison being established here. I'm not sure that we've had a fair amount of. I'm not sure that we've had all the information that we need in order to say yes to this at this point in time. So my vote would be against. That isn't against, correct? Voting no. Oh, apologies. Yeah. No, I am for the idea and I understand the need for it. However, we haven't had enough detail yet for us to be able to say yes.
As for myself, I'm speaking as someone, I've mentioned this, I mean, you all know this. I've started work on the ETC Next stuff and then the town plan. I've been doing that straight since 2017. So I told you I looked at this by looking at the town plan, specifically the items you have in front of you, the action plan and the goals. And I didn't view it as, is it permissible to do this? Or is there something saying it can't happen? I was looking at our town goals and saying, would changing this zoning, presumably with the addition of women's correctional facility shortly thereafter, make it harder or easier to reach each particular goal? And the one that really, really, really stood out is the transportation. I'll look at the particular goal here. It's under, I want to say 3. I had a separate Google Doc, but I don't trust the Wi-Fi right now. I'm not going to open that up. Where was it? Yeah, specific transportation policies. If you look under goals 3B, 3C, 3D, actually pretty much all of them. Evaluate ways to preserve and improve the condition, efficiency, reliability of the transportation system. Transition from an auto-centric focus to a multimodal focus that increases attention and investment in walking, biking, and transit use. 3D, investigate how new transportation investments could strengthen the areas of economic vitality. 3E, determine feasible and effective ways to address climate protection goals affected by transportation. 3F, collaborate with the community to address traffic impacts on topics such as livability, health, equity, and quality of life. And so when the DOC commissioner was here about a month ago, that was, as you recall, one of the things that we sort of pressed him on, and as well as the buildings and grounds. What is your means by which you can get transportation? And that was very fuzzy to me. It was, and I don't doubt the commissioner's intent. I think his intent was to get all of the things for us. What I did kind of doubt was their ability to do it in a way that would both support their project and not put a burden on our infrastructure potentially. And I disliked the idea, and this is, Shu, basically what you were saying, I dislike the idea of us changing zoning and locking that in without some assurance that this would happen. Again, not doubting the commissioner's intent to do it, but once the zoning is changed, the zoning is changed. And if then the transportation infrastructure doesn't come through, what we're essentially doing, in my mind, is putting that issue towards the DRB. And we're saying, when this proposal comes before the DRB will figure out whether the transportation is there. And we have a development that was proposed in this town very recently where that was an issue. And we have seen what that proposed developer did after the DRB did something. And I don't want, the point of a planning commission is not to put a DRB in that sort of position, where they have to sort of decide infrastructure stuff when zoning should be based on infrastructure. And so I'm where Ian was and where she was. I'm not against the concept of a prison or a women's correctional facility or anything in this new Scandinavian style model. That's an interesting concept. But I think other things not just have to be answered, but we have to have assurances. And approving this as written right now, we would be locked in. The assurances have to come from the state. We heard a lot about stakeholders. If I recall, I want to say it was buildings and grounds, said we'll assemble the stakeholders and figure it out. Like, I don't want to assemble the stakeholders and figure it out. I want them to say, here's what our transportation plan is, given our transportation needs, given your town plan, and given your current infrastructure and where you want your infrastructure to be. I want that to be locked in and decided before any such zoning change. That was my major one, because I think it's the one that's most under someone's control, in that is a state agency. I mean, and you'll recall at our last meeting, not September 11th, but September 25th, we had a developer come in and say, I would like to investigate changing the zoning in this particular spot. And what we said was, the infrastructure isn't currently there. And so we're not going to investigate this until we go to in this case, the select board, and see if they're open to expanding the infrastructure, whether that means a sewer core boundary or some sort of agreement or whatever it meant. We needed to do that first to make sure we weren't zoning something that wasn't properly zoned for the infrastructure. And I feel this is identical to that. It would be, to my mind, a bit odd to rezone this without having those infrastructure assurances when we told another landowner in town that they needed to have the infrastructure discussion first and have it an assurance and have it locked in, make it clear. That is where I stand at the moment. So if is there any further thoughts at the table? Because people did also come here to speak, and I was thinking, my thought, and I think I said in an email, from 7 to 8, broadly speaking, we could do public comment and then bring it back to the table for the last 15 minutes. I mean, it sounds as though we're kind of in the same place.
Well, we definitely should get more input. I mean,
Right.
first of all, people are here, but
No, precisely.
there's also, there could be something, some interesting.
No, exactly.
That could make a difference.
Exactly. And I just wanted to make sure that we're sort of at a good place at the table to open it to public comment. Kent, you had a thought?
A little distance away from the microphone. Anybody can't hear me? No. So I looked at it from the perspective of the plan. Also, I just had a couple ideas I wanted to share with you that were kind of question marks for me to try to see, because depending on how these different issues in the plan are addressed, this could have positives. These were some of the questions I had. The first one in the town plan on pages 12 and 13, which you brought up already. I thought that that's a really important point. The kind of investments that would support their project, area over there, community in general, don't have clarity on that. And in particular, this could be a really good opportunity to make some additional commitments to transit that would serve the facility, the clients, and the broader community. And we could really see some benefits from that idea, coupled with whatever new road connections they might make, could really open up some other possible connections for transit within the Saxon Hill industrial. It might open up other ideas, other options. So those were a couple of the things related to transportation that were kind of question marks. In the section in the town plan starting on page 20 that about local government services. But actually, I guess it's best going to page 22. In specifically, our services and for the fire department. There's the policies, the action items 9.21 and 9.22 for the police department. For the police department, about looking for extra resources for them to be able to.
921 and 922. I'm just going to read those. I'm just going to read those. I'm a little closer to the mic, I think. That's increased resources to address crime, mental health crises probably, and the increase in traffic volume, and then plan for and fund replacement of critical communications infrastructure. And those were police action items that were developed by the police department, just so you know what we're reading. Sorry, go ahead.
And then for fire department, the action items 9.28 and 9.29, which I'll read those off. 9.28 has to do with increasing paid on-call firefighters, and 9.29 has to do with an increased number of paid staff for weekly coverage. Understanding how those items in the town plan might be able to be supported or impacted, how they might be impacted as part of this project, could be helpful to know. There might be other ways that aren't mentioned in the town plan that this project could contribute to emergency services that maybe aren't spelled out exactly in the town plan. And then in the on page 27, in the section of the town plan that talks about education, and it talks about the Essex Westford School District and the Center for Technology in Essex. There could be ways that CTE in particular could see benefits from this project depending on what the state's able to offer. In particular, CTE offers 3 different programs: childhood education and human services, with human services being a potential option that could benefit from this. They have an emergency services program and a health professionals program. In The draft economic development study that the town's working on right now, which is still a draft, but one of the things that they're looking for is workforce support. One of their strategies would be to increase collaboration with educational partners. And it looks like they'll be specifically calling out collaboration with CTE and their apprenticeship programs, try to see what kind of benefits that can have with adding to the workforce and the training programs, and then also backwards, the benefits that would have to the students and the school district itself. So having more information about that would be helpful. And also in the draft economic development strategy, there's a section in there about infrastructure, which talks about public transit also. So those were some of the pieces that came to mind for me that would be helpful to have more information with, because there could be potentially a really good nexus where the state would be able to achieve its goals, the town would be able to see other benefits, either in our education system, workforce development, other benefits that would be mutually beneficial, or alternately, it just kind of falls flat and these opportunities aren't realized, and that would be sort of a negative and sort of unfortunate circumstance. So, but it would be good to have an idea going forward before something gets to the DRB, so that it would be clear what kind of conditions would be required, and have clarity for the state ahead of time so that they could make the right preparations and the right design considerations for it. So I wouldn't be surprised when all of a sudden they would get to the DRB and see things that were unfamiliar to them.
Any further thoughts from the commission based on? Kent?
I just think counting on the state to come through with things that they've agreed to without some kind of solid legal requirement is a fool's errand.
Which would be really hard to tie to a zoning change. Like, I agree with all of what you're saying, but if we're talking about a zoning change, like how do you, all those great ideas, like even if we all agreed and made the zoning change and went through all the process, how would we make it so the DRB would require that in a regulation? It'd be pretty tough to do. Without really hog tying somebody else down the road. So that would be my, I don't know how you do that very specifically target, but that with a regulation, I don't know how you can do it.
And the state at this point isn't proposing
Nope.
any of those.
Unfortunately, they are not.
Yeah, and I feel like, Josh, you hit on this a bit, that there are, I think these are potential things that could be beneficial to the town if they agreed to it, but they are not willing to have that discussion until the zoning change is made.
Right.
And so it's,
That's highly suspicious.
Yeah.
Well, it was the, as we said to the proposal for the idea at the September 25th meeting, there's a chicken and egg situation here, obviously. But at this point, and then we'll push the public, at this point, we have to assume that the state has said what they're going to say. It has been a year and a half. If they were going to say something else about what is possible and what they could offer, I believe they would have said it. And they would have said, yes, here's how we can do those list of items that we sent questions to them saying, how would you do this? How would you do that? And we had them here. I mean, their answers at this point are their answers. Whatever we wish they would have said. What they actually did say is what they said. All right, so we have, it's a little after 7. I'd like public comment to go to about 8. First off, how many people would like to speak, bearing in mind we're going to go with people who haven't spoken, and who, the 4 people who last time were not able to speak. Are any of you are here? All right, so could I see all the hands again? Okay. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I counted 6. So I think we can do the usual 3 minutes and be just fine. So I'm going to open it up to public comment. And ma'am, you were ready to speak last time? Yes. You may go first.
So thanks very much. I really appreciate this opportunity. So when I started my teaching career in 1969, I should say my name is Cheryl Green and I live in Burlington. When I started my teaching career in 1969, we as a society were just beginning to welcome children with special needs into schools with other regular students. We had isolated this population, othered them, educated them separately, institutionalized them, branded them mentally retarded. A cousin of mine was placed that way decades ago, and I never met her. As educators, we figured out how to be inclusive. We hired special education teachers and assistants who helped out in classrooms or met with small groups of students for an hour a few times a week. As my teaching years rolled out, I became acutely aware of another isolated population. Sometimes I would have a child in my classroom with a parent in prison. One year, a child with both parents in prison. I witnessed every day the very particular struggles about this secret that wasn't quite a secret. Some people knew, some didn't. One day, a student named Ricky became so enraged in my Vermont public school class of 9 and 10-year-olds, I had to quietly coax him into the hallway with me and then hold my foot against the classroom door as we talked so he couldn't get back in. "What's going on with you, Ricky?" I asked. "I just found out my father won't get out of prison until I am 19, he yelled, and then he sobbed. So these are the stories that I'm not hearing in your decision-making process regarding zoning, transportation. Do we want these new neighbors? The system of locking people up, isolating them from their families, as we have learned from many here tonight, and this is from the last meeting, is not the answer. We know how to do this. There are viable alternatives to help a person turn their life around, as many have stated this evening. Education, restorative justice, community service, adequate housing, support working through trauma, all are in the mix. I request that you consider these factors along with the other public comments that you received during the public forum September 11th, 2025 at the Essex Planning Commission meeting. Thank you.
Would like to speak next? You, sir, in the front haven't spoken before, is that correct? Do you want to go?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I don't recall you speaking last time.
I wasn't one of the four you talked about.
Oh, but I think she's the only one who's here presently.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're up. You're up.
Get your name, please, for the, just for the
Well,
record.
give me a chance. My name's Joe T. Arden. I live at 16 Chelsea Road. And I wanted to let you know, just first of all, I'm in full support of a correctional facility in our town. And I came here tonight simply just to tell you that and to walk away, because I have not been at any of these meetings in the past to hear what all has been said. But I just want to give you my impression of what I heard tonight when you guys spoke. Just from an unbiased person out there. I'm not mad at you or anything, but it feels to me like you all have found a way to say no. And whether you have or have not, I don't know. I don't know what is in your heart, but that's what it sounds like to me. This issue is bigger than whether, a city bus goes by a facility or not. This is a huge issue. And it's my understanding that if you vote no tonight, that this thing dies. Is that the way it is?
Not necessarily. What it could mean, just to answer you quickly.
Yeah, so
It would mean that this particular zoning change request would not considered by us. But if the state could come back with a different zoning request and having done whatever.
So
infrastructure.
technically though, that's true, but what practical areas is this going to die practically?
That's up to the state, to be honest. This specific proposal, yes, that would be it. But the state could come back with an amended proposal, as they originally had 2 sites and they've narrowed to 1. They could come back with something else. That is possible.
So here's my my advice, for what that's worth, is that instead of trying to find a way to say no because, why don't you try to find a way to say yes if, and make sure that this goes on to all the people of Essex to learn more about, and then if it comes down to it, it comes down to a yes or no vote. Like you said, that was the alternative in the end, was that as it works its way through, then the town would have to vote and say yay or nay, right? If your vote tonight really, in all practicality, is going to end this, that's just not right. And I think you ought to find a way to say, yes, we will go forward with this if these things happen. And give then people in the town more of an opportunity to learn more about it. I realize that you've been I heard the 14-month thing. I got it. That's a long time. And you might be asking, where are all the people? Where do they care? Or whatever. Well, I've cared all along. I just haven't chosen to come. I'm here tonight, though. And I think there are others who feel the same way. Okay? So
Thank you.
thanks for the opportunity to speak.
I didn't really come prepared for anything. I just wanted to just kind of give you guys, sounds like you've done a lot of homework, which is great. I mean, on all this and have been listening to everybody. My name is Jason Greiner, by the way. I live over off of Sand Hill Road, so it's kind of near this facility. And I've got a couple of kids that are in school and they ride their bikes to school and they walk to schools, and that's pretty close. And that's my concern. It's pretty close to our residential area there. And it's a really kid-friendly area. They ride their bikes over in that Saxon Hill area off of Thompson Road, and they ride through the woods there, and so do the neighborhood kids. And I'm not concerned about the people in the prison because they're in the prison. I'm concerned about folks coming to visit the prisons because I've seen other facilities, the areas around those other facilities, what that winds up bringing in sometimes perfectly great people, sometimes it's not. And with our children walking to schools by themselves, riding, I see kids every day. I walk my daughter to school every day. She wants to walk to school. It's like a mile walk, but it's right along Sand Hill Road there. And this isn't far from there. And I'm concerned about the kids. That's just too close to the schools, that location. Like, I'm not against prisons. I'm not really like for prison either. We have to have the punishment sometimes with things. Do I believe in other methods? 100%. But I'm not against the prison being built in a better facility. I'm concerned about the location, and I'm just concerned about the kids, and with the schools that are so close by to there, and all the kids that ride their bikes through, so, and walk around and just have fun. That's my only concern. That's all I wanted to say, and thank you for letting me talk and your consideration for everything you've done.
I'm his neighbor, live off Sand Hill Road. Joe Schaefer. I'm not originally from here. I moved here from Michigan 5 years ago. I grew up in a suburb of Flint, and I lived near the Thumb Correctional Facility. Thumb, not a person named Thumb, but like and Davison and Lapeer were 2 towns that were along I-69. Think of it like 89. It's the through road between the 2 cities. Both towns are like South Burlington. The city is one road through each town. Everything's on there. It's boondocks in between. As Flint died, people started moving into the suburbs. And despite the land being cheaper around the correctional facility, they could not get people to move there. And even if you look at it now, you can look up the Thumb Correctional Facility, look at a map, Google Earth. There's no neighborhoods around there. There's these two huge communities, and they built around it. It's like a big dead zone. You know, we're not really getting it. If this gets built over here, I live off Sand Hill Road, actually off Partridge Drive at the very end of Allen Martin. You know, we're really close to it, and I'm worried that we're going to see the whole area just kind of implode on itself given enough time, because no one wants to live by a correctional facility. And the one thing that always stuck out to me growing up was, you know, no matter where you were when you got in the general vicinity of the place, there were huge signs: do not pick up hitchhikers, correctional facility. These are huge signs, like 4 foot by 8 foot, you know, reflective text so you can see them at night. This wasn't a maximum security prison, but there was a lot of problems, like he said, with the people coming into the prison and then people getting out and not having anywhere to go, and they just kind of stayed. And I really worry about putting a correctional facility so close to our neighborhoods and, you know, close to schools, close to small businesses. It just, you know, it kind of, from past experience living near the Thumb Correctional Facility, I don't think it would be good for the community. And that's all I got to say. So, thank you.
So Andrew Seaver, 14 Hillside Circle. So I'm just going to have you folks, I'll give this to you. It was given to my neighbor, Reg, the elderly woman who was with us at the last meeting, concerned about her home. This is a Vermont Digger article from September 9th. So talking about what's happening now since the transport, which we talked about at the last meeting, has gone away. So that there's no the sheriffs and all of that. So at the time, the Department of State's attorney and sheriff decided to stop transporting people released from the Southern State Correctional Facility in Springfield, phasing out entirely a practice that had been cut to a lack of resources. And so now these folks are being told now that, well, don't expect any money this year because we know we've got a big hole in the education fund that someone's got to find $150 million for. So the whole transportation thing with the state, they don't have the means to fix. And I don't believe that whatever they might tell us, that they're going to have the means to fix it. But one interesting comment in this was about the few times that when people are released from Vermont's rural prisons onto the streets, they will do what they need to do to survive. Valerio told the lawmakers. So this is the previous commissioner. In rare past instances, that's meant starting fires to stay warm. And if I was in that situation, I probably would do the same thing. And like other folks here have said, it's not that we're against the facility and whether it needs to be a different type of a facility or no facility. It's about whether or not this is right for our community and is it right in this part of town. So I think that with all of what you folks have said tonight, you're at the same point that we are. It's like, it's all unknown. There's no guarantees. There's nothing other than wait and see if, you know, something does or does not happen. And that's just, you know, it is about what's in the best interest of the Essex community. It's not about what's best for the state. It's not best for South Burlington or rest of Chittenden County. Your responsibility here is what is best for the town of Essex. And the town plan going forward is this part of what the town plan is, and this is what we want to see. So I'll give this to you.
Thank you.
Lisa Goodrich, 30 Hillside Circle, half a mile as the crow flies from the proposed site. As I'm listening tonight, I didn't come prepared to speak, but we're talking about the impacts to the entire community. And I kind of think it might impact development as well. I mean, you're working very hard and trying to find how to develop the area given constraints, be they, the slopes, et cetera, et cetera. But this could have a very negative impact on positive development that people would like to see, trying to make Essex a destination place, looking for more recreation. I don't think people are going to be really thrilled about recreating right next to a prison or putting in a restaurant potentially or any of those things. I know that there's a large demand for indoor soccer field, which is not working out just yet over there. But we have to take all of those things into consideration when we're talking about development of the town and growing our workforce, right? So I just wanted to put that out there. And it's not about not wanting to be inclusive. These people are a member of our society at large, but the state has said they have money and they can buy land elsewhere. I can't think of the woman's name. Can you? Wanda has said it. She was recorded as saying it just last February. So it's not like there aren't other possibilities out there. We are not the last resort. Thank you.
Good evening. Also didn't come with prepared comments, but thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have two things to say. One, I live a mile. My name is Johnny Mendez, live on Hickory Lane, 1 mile from the site, the proposed site for the prison. I'm against the prison being in Essex. I am pro rehabilitation. I am pro lowering, recidivism rates and all that, and getting folks back into society as functioning members of society. But Essex is not the town for it. Prisons change the face of their town. There is a long track record of it. Regardless of what kind of design, what kind of facility it is, the sheer nature of a prison changes the face of the town. And when I've lived here for 20 years, and when I see all of the amazing things that have happened in this town, when we had a little lull and now all of a sudden things just seem to be kind of buzzing. I see the mountain bikes going through those Saxon Hollow trails. I see what's going on at the Essex Experience, and I just have this really amazing feeling about this town, and all of that is at stake here. And I think a prison is going to absolutely begin to invite the types of businesses that no one wants to see. And dare I say it, what we see in some places, even in Essex Junction, some of the types of businesses that we see there, we don't want to see here in Essex. And that's what's going to happen here. A couple of things that also came to light. You mentioned 14 months and we haven't heard from businesses. 14 months and we really haven't heard from people. That's on us, right? But I will say, in defense of parents of young children, it's very difficult, especially with the challenges they face, to make the time to be here or to take part in the Zooms when they have young ones at home. It's hard for business owners to kind of take the time to be able to hit all of these things when they're facing challenges as well. But it is on us. I have two people here who came because we started to talk to our neighbors, and they came because we started to talk to them. So everyone who's online right now, our challenge to you, if you're against the prison, talk to your neighbors and get them to get active. Write letters to the Planning Commission, let them know your feelings, And for everyone who's here, also reach out to businesses and have them start to get active, because we as a town can let the Planning Commission know that you should get your time back to be able to work on the things that will really help this town the long term. Those short-term things of infrastructure things will be overrun by the detrimental long-term effects that'll happen to the town when the prince is here. No one's gonna care about the buses and, oh, look at this new road and all of that, because of the sheer impact of the detrimental effects of having a prison in this town. So I am against it. I think the town should go into places like Berlin, perhaps, that they own. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, in the back.
Hi, I'm Karen Crawford, and I also live in the area off of Sand Hill Road. And I wasn't concerned so much of thinking of my home, except my concerns were we have 3 schools right here in walking distance of that area where the prison is potentially going to be. And quite honestly, I was just amazed to think that we would consider putting a prison within walking distance of these 3 schools. I think we've got maybe 400 kids in each of those schools. And as someone else had mentioned, you know, kids are walking to school, kids are riding their bikes to school. And if you drive around our communities any morning, you will see, even sometimes when it's very cold, that those kids are out there and they're moving. And we live in a nice area. We live in a wooded area, which is lovely to live in and be around, but it also affords people places to just kind of hang out and not necessarily be seen. As stated, like, it's on community members that we haven't come forward maybe and spoken at these things, but I just happened to hear about it. And so I don't even know how many other community members really have no idea that, even though it's been 14 months, that this is going on in your meetings or maybe in other meetings in the community. And so it's hard even to keep track of items like this, to come and say, this might be my opinion or my feeling, but I do sincerely appreciate each of you seems to have really looked at the town plan and what the outlines for what Essex is hoping to grow towards, to lean in the direction of, and to stay within that. And I appreciate that you can have a guideline that is not feelings based, but that it is something that's been written down, it's been thought about, it's been pursued through years. And so that gives you good guidance as to whether or not something fits into the zoning that we currently have or warrants a zoning change. And I also do appreciate the fact that we do not really know that the state will not agree to one thing and build one item and then change it in the future. And then I assume we have no way of stopping that once it's already done. And so then it's out of our control. So a plan that you may have started with that you felt was worth a change could change to something that you never would have approved. So thanks.
I don't see anybody online.
No one online?
Well, there are people online.
I mean, no one online with their hands raised. I figured lots of people were on. Irene Renner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to second what Mr. Teagarden said at the beginning of the comments. I'd love to look at this as a yes if. Propose an MOU if you would to the state unless they do that first. I don't think people who have been to meetings may have a really good sense of where this site is. It is farther away than the Amazon site. It is near where North Williston Road comes out and meets Route 115. According to my GPS, it's over a mile. So if your children are riding their bikes on River Road, you may have a bigger problem than them riding bikes near a potential women's correctional and reentry facility. It's misperceptions like that that I think have swayed some people's thinking, and that concerns me greatly. When I hear that overcrowding was the only reason that was heard as a reason to build this facility, I've been paying attention for a long time. I had the benefit of serving on the Senate Institutions Committee, and what was brought to our attention was the unsanitary environment. The showers reeked of human waste and were infested with sewer flies, maggots, and mold. There's an inadequate physical plant. This facility was built in the 1970s. It's one of the oldest in the state prison system, and it was never designed to be a full-scale facility, originally serving as a temporary detention center for men. It has a leaky roof, broken HVAC, inadequate wiring, and an uneven heating system that often shuts down in the middle of winter. Some of the rooms are now stacked with 4 people when they're built for 2. Some of those 4-person rooms only have a single electrical outlet. So when you don't have any AC in the summer and you got one little fan plugged into that wall, it's really problematic. So I hope you understand it's not just overcrowding. There are other issues. There's a lack of dignity and basic necessities. The toilet to inmate ratio in some of the units was 3 units to 40 people, which falls below the 1 to 8 American Corrections Association standard. There are so many limited opportunities for workforce training. There's not currently a work release program, and so on and so forth. If any of you were aware, the background of a number of the people who came to the last meeting and were so disruptive are part of a national organization called Free Her. It's on them, the misbehavior, and I don't appreciate a national organization fundraising off of our dilemmas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Goodrich, I live in Essex. When she was just making these comments, my question was why? Why did the state let this correctional facility descend to where it is? They didn't have the money, I guess, or they didn't care. Why is the plumbing not maintained? If the state can build a prison in Essex, why didn't they fix this? Why did they just leave it? We had problems at Woodside, I believe, too. Why did that happen? Was that our fault or was that the state's fault? I think it was the state's fault. So I don't really trust the state. And I don't trust they're going to have the money to build and maintain this place. It's going to end up falling on us, or it's going to become another South Burlington facility. I think that's a perfect location. I think you put a prison not in a bunch of neighborhoods. You put it in a business area, or isolated somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. I just think we're planning on sending people to the moon and to Mars, and we can't fix a prison. And so instead, we're going to build another one here. There's so many things that make me uncomfortable. And so I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate people who come up for the prison, but I'm not convinced. And so anyway, thank you for listening to all of us and taking this seriously. I guess the other concern is and maybe I missed the explanation on this. I might be misinformed, but once we give zoning, or we change zoning, and the state basically has control of this land to do as they please in the corrections realm, I'm guessing. Once we change zoning, we can't go in and say, we don't like that idea. We'd like you to build a smaller, or we'd like you not to expand to include violent criminals, or we'd like you not to change it to, do we have any say once the zoning's changed? And they don't seem to be too forthcoming. And again, it would be nice if we could get promises of we will do this. And it has to be legal. As you said, there has to be some legal basis. That hasn't been working. And I liked your point that they've given us answers. And it's like, are they, at this point, are they going to be giving us more answers? I think we have to accept the answers they've given us. So that's all I have to say. I'd like many of these more eloquent people, I believe we need correctional facilities and we need to improve them, but I don't think this town is the place for it. Thank you.
Or a hand up online.
Oh, if there's no one in the room, we'll go online. Who is, it looks like, I'm assuming Rachel Lazat. You're recognized, Rachel. 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Rachel is at Essex resident, and I'll make it brief because I know I've taken up a lot of your time. And I just want to echo the concerns that people have raised today about the project. And I would also just like to make a point in saying that we are well aware of the site location, and we are and we have valid concerns as people who abut, not necessarily abut, but are close by to the property. Closer as the crow flies. And as people indicated, the schools are very close by. Kids are walking, biking. There's 2 playgrounds in addition to the schools that the town owns that are pretty well used. And I'd just like you to, in closing, just please consider the future of our new town. The town of Essex, is new now. We are on our own, and we have a lot of potential, and that is exactly what the town plan speaks to. And I would just like to remind the board of that. Thank you.
In the back.
My name's Susie Seaver, and I actually live off Hillside too. 2 areas of concern. I know when we were talking about the emergency services, my mother was living with us, and in 2017, when she passed away, it took them 27, not for the fault of their own, but it took them 27 minutes to show up at our house, to the point 911 was questioning me. No one's there yet, ma'am. And I'm like, no. I think it was like at 23 minutes, maybe, a police officer showed up. And then, of course, they're like, well, my mom had been dead for like 25 minutes, and they're like, I could try to revive her. So that affects. And the other thing that hasn't come up too, I've talked to several police officers, and they talk about the ones in the prisons. But what they're not telling you too, and I confirmed it the first night that the prison officials were here, you have people arrested and police officers coming from all over the state that have a warrant. They pick up people that have a warrant for arrest. And how it works is after 4:30, weekends and holidays, they come to the facility. So in this case, in South Burlington, they get dropped off. Prior to COVID, they were brought to the courthouse where they would see if they made bail or whatever. I was told 9 times out of 10, they make bail. So now what happens after COVID, they're brought to the facility, and then they face the judge by Zooming the following day at midday. And then if they're released, they're allowed to walk off. The state says, well, we provide a bus, and that was back then. Now they have no transportation. But even then, as I confronted one of the police officers, I'm like, well, 9 times out of 10, they don't take that bus because they want to actually, if they're coming from Berlin, and quite a few come up from central Vermont, if you want to take the bus, they want to stay up here for where there's free things. So if there's temporarily housing, shelters, so then those people are literally the ones walking off daily and into our neighborhoods. So that's as a 63-year-old, my kids are grown up, but I'm concerned for myself. And so I'm for a prison, but I heard the same people say that we have money, we can buy property where it's someplace that would be a better fit, I think. So thank you very much.
There's another person online.
Chelsea Page, you are recognized. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Page. I am a resident of Burlington, so I don't live in the town, and I'm not sure if comment is open to other folks like me, but I really appreciate the opportunity to participate. So I'm a new resident of Vermont, and so I just want to speak to you guys as fellow residents of this state that I really wish you could see a path forward to working with our state government to find a way to make this project work for both your town and also all the residents of our county. I have 2 children, and what I know from my own experience is that anyone in our families can become addicted and can become justice involved. And when I think about our kids' well-being, I think about a place where if they do something wrong, they can go and be treated humanely and have a chance to get better. And I feel really sad that if towns like Essex, which is such a wonderful town, if we can't see a way to provide this in our state, that our children could be sent out of state, or when they grow up and try to make a life here in Vermont and do something wrong and need support, that this facility is either not going to be here for them, or they'll have to go far away from our families to find reintegration. And that makes me sad for our state. I think we need every resident of Vermont to be here and be supported to make this state, all that it can be. So thank you for working hard on this project.
I'm Diane Percy. I live here in Essex, and I just wanted to say I'm really proud of Essex. Whenever I have to make a tough decision, I always kind of reflect and say, well, did I do the best I can? Did I look at criteria? Did I look at things not emotionally? And I just want to make sure that everybody in the room and online remembers that Essex has already stepped up, and we're hosting for the state the River Valley residents. 10.2 acres. They could put up whatever they wanted to. It's zoned for corrections. They chose to put up River Valley. So I just really want to publicly say we continue to do our part. That facility's only been open, I think, since 2022. Does that sound right? 22, 23. So let's see how they do. I hope it doesn't become like what's going on with the South Burlington facility. But for people who are thinking about Essex not doing their part, I just want to publicly say, oh, yes, we are. And they've already made a commitment to expanding a little bit down there. And they can do that because the zoning changed 40 years ago and allows for corrections. And now they've got that building down there, and they're going to expand it a little bit. So I just want to stay focused on that as an 11,000 person town, that we're doing our part. And it's time for the other communities in Vermont to really think deeply about what they can do. Okay, thanks.
One in the room physically? Anyone online? All right, in which case, let's bring it back to the table and let's figure some things out. So I'm going to start with Georgia, if that's okay with you. Because you said you were the closest to a yes of us. I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but where I'm going with this is we've heard sort of the yes if idea. And do you have a yes if? Because I do want to explore this line of thought because I think it's worth looking down all the passages here.
For me personally,
For you personally, you said you felt you were closest to this.
I feel like if there was, yeah, if we got some solid indication that there would be a bus route, that there would be money towards our infrastructure and money towards our first responders, if we were getting something for the community, I would feel okay with it. I would feel good about hosting it personally. But I'm not seeing that. And it is the chicken and the egg problem, but I don't know how to resolve that.
So my broad question, this is maybe more to staff than anybody else. It seems we have a pretty clear consensus at the table and with Ian online of what we're thinking. Does that require something akin to a motion? Do we need to make a motion saying we don't like this as in and the way it's currently presented? Because I think to be fair to everyone who's spoken over the past 14 months in our own deliberations, we do have to convey to the state exactly, if it's unclear somehow, exactly why we're saying no to this tonight right now. And so what I'm asking, what is the best way to do that so they will understand what our no tonight means? Because I think there are, I don't know if we're yes ifs at the table, but there are a lot of us who would say, if these guarantees were in place and they could be like legal guarantees, however that happens, we would be willing to look at this. But as it currently stands, the way it is written, the answers we've heard from the state, which again, we have to assume that they could have answered more if they wanted to. But given all that, I don't think anyone on the, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anyone on the commission would support this right now. And so how do we convey to the state exactly what we said in a manner that they'll understand?
I think you're right. A motion would make sense. And I think with that motion being as clear, or explaining it as clearly as possible what it means. So if you're saying no, and here's why, or are you saying if these things maybe, or whatever you're thinking, and it's what I'm hearing is no, and here's why. So just make it clear the here's why.
That's why I didn't mean to you, Georgia, but I wanted to see if you were, that's why you're the vice chair. More of a yes and like how we could do this, because I think otherwise we're just going to say no, but I don't know if that's helpful to anyone. It's just a blanket no. But I think also they could read the minutes of the meeting pretty well, listen to the commentary pretty well, and say, oh, okay, this is why. And so I don't want to write or move some lengthy whereas and the following. It's just no, we're saying no.
Yeah.
I think what you
No, please.
I think what you should do is motion should always be positive and then be voted no, as opposed to saying the motion being no, and then we all say yes. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you could make the motion positive, and we can say no, and here's why. That's just saying as a procedural thing.
Right, and I think the here's why is helpful. Like you said, they could listen to the recording, see the minutes, but having it could be pretty succinct. But then say if you really want to get a better flavor for it, go listen to or watch the tape.
I think I found in other cases, it's hard to kind of design the solution for somebody else. Like
Right.
we're kind of identifying
Right.
what the problems are, and they go and listen to the problems, but they kind of need to come up with the solution.
I mean, yeah, that's been the issue the whole time.
Well, and maybe the point is just to say what the problem as part of the motion, but that might be.
Except for I think what you're saying, Shu, is right, that it should be a motion in the affirmative that would fail, and then explaining why it failed. as opposed to it being in the
Can't quite
Positive
hear what you're
motion.
saying, Catherine.
So what we're saying is, procedurally speaking, it would make the most sense for someone to make a motion to put the zoning change up for a public hearing, and then we all vote it down. And then when you have a negative vote, you can give your reasons for voting negatively. So, and then if say it's 0-6 against, and then we would say, the state is welcome to review the minutes of this meeting, or our reasons are such and such. I think reviewing the minutes would be cleanest. I was just looking for a procedural way to, so it'd be very clear what we're doing. If that,
And why?
And why, yeah, right, and why. If that is the case, shoot.
Yeah.
Do you have a motion to make possibly?
Yeah, I move that we accept the state of Vermont's zoning request for the industrial zone. Keep it simple, unless you want me to get into the whole thing.
Do I have a second on that motion?
It could die in its tracks.
Right.
So,
In which case it could move forward to a hearing if that's what we want to do.
you know, I'm a little confused. Okay, so make the motion to accept. And then if you don't want to accept it, you vote no.
Right. Or the motion simply doesn't get a second. And that is clear enough. Is that what I mean, I think it's clear what we want to do. We just want to do the procedure right.
I can second it.
Okay. Seconded by Georgia. All those in favor of the motion to approve and move forward the state zoning request, say aye. All those opposed, including Ian online.
who is not online.
He's gone?
He's gone.
Okay, so everyone in the room at the commission table, all those opposed to the motion, say nay. Nay. The motion fails 0-5. And the state is invited to look at the minutes of this meeting and our discussions for reasons as to the failure of the motion. I think we've been clear. All right. So that is agenda item, wait, my thing's reloading, sorry. That's agenda item 6. Taking us now to agenda item 7, other business. Is there any other business?
I guess the only question I have, you've been having a second meeting a month with the zoning roundtable. Is that something that you want to do, or whatever? Fourth,
October
Thursday.
23rd? Sure. I mean, that's the fourth one.
Let's talk about one more.
Yeah, I think October 23rd, yeah.
Okay, great.
And I think we had talked about two particular things. One thing was very appropriately given our discussion to get back on track of looking at what sort of things the town plan called for us to do in terms of zoning that was directed from our action plan and our goals. To have that sort of timeline discussion at that meeting. And then also, I don't know where it stands with talking to the DRB, because remember Ian had talked about wanting to come in as a whole DRB. And that meeting could be a good time for both of those. Maybe not entertain new, we've been sort of entertaining ideas. This could just be sort of a housekeeping meeting, because and she was right, we're not going to get the second meeting in November or December. And I think if we don't have to have sort of a controversy of the week kind of thing, we could do one meeting a month, as long as our timeline is set.
Yeah, meeting our objectives.
And meeting our objectives.
The year.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else from anyone? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move we adjourn.
Moved by Shu,
Second.
seconded by Paula. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it 5-0. We are adjourned at 6.